Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoilery discussion for Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo. As I mentioned, this video will have spoilers in it for this book, so if you have not read it, go ahead and check out my spoiler-free review, which is linked on the screen. So I just took notes in, chronological order as I was reading this. If you haven't watched my review, I encourage you to kind of do so just to get like the, too long didn't read version of this. But basically, I went into this book with really low expectations because I was so incredibly disappointed by the first book in this series. So I do think that that helped me to be like in here with lower expectations, but overall I do think this was better than the first book, but I continue to feel like this duology did not need to happen, and there were still some missteps, but overall I do like how she wrapped it up. Let's get into it. So first, just how we left off at the end of King of Scars. The Darkling is back, and I was like not super pleased about this. Continue to be not pleased about the Darkling being back. I think the way that it sort of ended, I guess, is fine, which I will get to later on. But I didn't like the Darkling was back, and I feel like it really invalidated a lot of like Alina's journey and like Alina defeating him and all of that. So I was like, if he's gonna be back, you better fucking bring Alina back in, and she did. But I didn't really like the way that that was done. Like, I'm glad that it was done. I'm glad it happened. Like, I'm glad Alina was there. But it was incredibly underwhelming just to have her and Miles show up. And also, like, they didn't really act like themselves. He did, like, a little bit more than her. But this whole, like, I get that she just wanted to be, like, a normal person. But this whole fact that she, like, embraces, like, they say that she's dressed like a peasant all the time. And I'm like, just have her be like normal. We don't need to have her go from like that. I don't know. I just don't like that. I don't like what was done with Alina at all. I continue to be pissed. Even if her is the character, that's what she wanted and whatever. Blah. I don't like it. And so that sucked. I did like how she managed to get under his skin a little bit though in that conversation, and she was like, why do you always have to be the savior? And like, she's always the one that can kind of like shit talk him. I continue to love that about Alina forever. But the fact that it was just like this setup for him to like grab both of them and take the power, like, even that part, like I've mentioned at the end of the Grisha trilogy, I really sort of hoped that like almost her power would come back because like she still had like the shadow power a little bit, and just the fact that she was sort of like an incubator for his power. I just don't like it. I just don't like that. Also, when he's like now on the run and everyone's like, you guys should go into hiding or whatever, and he didn't go after them, and that's fine, and I'm glad. But like, they should have gone into hiding, and they're like, no, we're gonna stay at Kremezin. I'm like, why? You know what he does. That is a stupid move. That's stupid. So that was just dumb. I didn't like what they were doing with that. So with the Darkling as well, the Darkling felt so much less imposing in this. Like, he is so almost like nerfed in this. He eventually does get his powers back, kind of, and he can like make shadow creatures and like all that. He doesn't do anything. Like, he just wanders around with Yuri in his head because he possessed that body. Also, I just remembered, now that like he went into the place between the worlds or whatever, did Yuri just get to die with him too? That feels very unfair. Anyway, so like, I guess fuck Yuri. Like, nothing's gonna, he doesn't get to get saved or whatever. So he just kind of like wanders around, and like his plot points aren't really necessary. Like, sure, we, I guess, have him at the end kind of like helping them out a little bit, and like the very, very end with like, holding the world together to repair that part of like the fold or whatever. But I still just don't, I feel like you could have not brought him back. I feel like the story could have been done without him being brought back. Honestly, like, his plot beats were not essential. I kind of like that he went by Alexander finally, because that just seems very like tied to the first series. But it was just like, he doesn't need to be here, and he felt just so ineffective and just like a shadow of himself. I mean, that's kind of funny. Unintentional pun. Leave him where he was. He was such a good villain in the first series, and so like, to bring him back for what? Why? Don't do that. He even says a line at one point to one of the Starless Saint like followers, like, he says, you and I are gonna change the world. That's Alina's line. Like, stop. Like, yes, there are references, but like, don't just do that with, it's so annoying. So a lot of tying back in former characters. We just talked about the Darkling and Alina and them. Bringing in Kaz and Jesper and I almost said Matthias, but it's Wylan. It was fine. I didn't hate it. It just feels like so heavy-handed. I will say that someone mentioned recently in my, when I did my unpopular opinions reacting to your guys' unpopular opinions. Someone put an unpopular opinion that shook me, and I noticed it in here, and I now agree with this person, that the Six of Crows characters are not friends. They are like crewmates and then a series of boyfriends. And they're not like a found family. That is true. Like, this is very apparent from this book. The fact that, like, Kaz is sort of by himself. Yeah, Inej comes back here and there, I guess, doing her, like, pirate thing. Jesper and Wyler are there. And then, like, Nina's a separate entity that really feels like she was never friends with them. Like, she brings them up in her thoughts sometimes, but, like, they don't have any contact. Like, this was not a found family like we all thought. These were coworkers and their boyfriends. Oh my god. I mean, there's some cute little references in there. I did like the conversation that Kaz and Nikolai had about, like, you know, one bastard to another and, like, some of that stuff. You know, I love Kaz. He remained, like, one of the characters that remained, like, so steady. Even, like, seeing Jesper again, and even Wylan, and, like, the hint that, like, you know, Jesper is a Grisha and some of that. Great. Cool. Whatever. It just was, like, as soon as I had to steal something, I'm like, they're gonna bring in the Six of Crows characters, and there's just, like, not enough time. That's the thing. This whole book, there's so many plot lines, but there wasn't enough time for all of them, and I'm sad about that, because I almost feel like this could have been a trilogy. Kind of glad it wasn't, but, like, it almost could have been, with all the plot points that were brought in. And so, like, just the fact that she has to be like, here's all these characters that you know, I'm like, I see, I get it, thank you. Okay, then we get the big reveal, the big twist. This was one twist that I did not see coming. Most of the twists I did. That Joran was the one that killed Matthias. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah, didn't really expect that, but it was also kind of like, was she gonna go backward? But, like, that little twisty twist, and the way that that ties to, and his whole thing about, like, you know, help my people, they're not all lost or whatever, ties to how she ends up at the end and everything with helping Fjerda. Kind of good, kind of like that. Okay, can we talk about the sheer amount of villains in this book? It's too much. It's too much. None of them are done very effectively, in my opinion, because they all just don't seem very threatening, because you don't get to spend enough time with, like, any of them, or, like, their threats to the characters don't last long enough because there's not enough time. We have Brum, the Apparat, the Darkling, Queen Maki, and then the Prince. Is it Rasmus or whatever? That is too many villains. Stop. It's too many. So none of them really felt very effective. Like I already mentioned, the Darkling was really nerfed, and even, like, the Sun powers were very nerfed. Like, the fact that we have, like, the Sun soldiers and Alina, you know, Alina at the end of book 3 of the Grisha trilogy lost all of her powers, and they went to all those other people, and then her powers are just kind of like, we have some Sun soldiers, like, taking care of the dark. Her powers were, like, incredibly powerful. I mean, I guess because they're being, like, dispersed to all these people, maybe that made them weaker, I don't know. But I'm like, seriously? These characters should be, like, really, really powerful, but whatever. Zoya being an actual dragon, I sort of love it. It's, like, a little extreme. So I really loved Zoya in this. I loved her in the last book too, because I felt like even in the last book, this is her duology, and it completely is. Like, this is not a Nikolai duology. The fact that this was advertised as a Nikolai duology, like, that is all lies. This is Zoya's arc of, you know, overcoming sort of that feeling of needing to be closed off, realizing that she's more than a soldier, becoming an actual queen, did not see that coming, becoming an actual queen, becoming a dragon, being, like, one of the most powerful Grisha, like, ever, embracing her Suli heritage. I wish we would have had more time for that. Like, that's the whole sad thing, is, like, some of these things we just didn't have a lot of time for, and it makes me so sad. Same thing with the Shu plotline. It was like, we have these, you know, soldiers and, you know, Mayu and, like, her twin and whatever. Like, there just was not a lot of time for that. And, like, honestly, of all the villains, I almost feel like that queen was probably the best and most, almost threatening of all of them. I mean, Brum can kind of be too, but, like, she felt like the most complex of all the villains, but ultimately, like, even that there was, like, not enough time for any of this stuff, right? And I did care about, like, the Shu plotline the least, because we don't really know these characters, and all of a sudden we get, like, a POV, like, in this final book. Come on. The line that was kind of repeated throughout of, like, we're all monsters now, like, that they all have a little bit of monster in them, that's really good. It's really good. Like, Leigh knows how to do some good lines, some just, like, iconic things, and, like, that was really good. So like I mentioned, the ending for me was the best. Like, everything started coming together, and I do feel like overall the way that things ended was good. We didn't have enough time for all the plots that I would have liked to have had, but overall the way that everything rounded out, I'm very happy with pretty much all the choices. First is stuff with, like, Nina and Han, I forget, I don't remember how people said to say her name before. The one thing with that one, that's the twist that like I knew that she wasn't dead. So here's the thing. So like David, I forgot even to mention, David dies. The thing about Leigh that I'm always a little bit like slightly annoyed by is she makes her character deaths like pretty predictable. She only gets rid of people who are like expendable feeling, and so that makes it kind of like I did tear up a little bit just for Genya's sake with the David thing, but I'm kind of like, of course David. Like, just like I knew in Six of Crows that Matthias was gonna die because he was the only like he was like the straight white dude. So like he was the only one, like she's not gonna kill off the plus size bi girl, she's not gonna kill off any of the characters of color, she's not gonna kill off any of the queer characters, and she's not gonna kill off Kaz, who's disabled. So like, while that all, yes, we don't want to have any like barrier gaze tropes or any of that, it just makes the characters that are actually on the chopping block so much more obvious. So I think there's a way for authors to like balance this better, you know? I don't know what that is, but I am not an author, so it's not my responsibility to solve this conundrum, but the fact that like I will always know that there are certain characters that are very safe and certain characters that aren't, and like that takes away any of the threat at all. So like he was the one, if anyone was gonna die, which I didn't necessarily think anyone was gonna die, but if anyone was going to die, yeah, I'm like, yeah, David. It's not gonna be anybody else. It's definitely not, everyone else has like almost plot armor on them. Like, no, everyone else is gonna be fine. But I am kind of mad about David dying, honestly. Like, I guess there had to be like some loss and whatever, but I'm kind of like, why? Like, let Genya like be happy, for fuck's sake. So that makes me sad, mostly for her sake, because we don't really get to spend a ton of time with him. So I do appreciate him. I'm kind of like, why did you do that? But like I was mentioning, I knew as soon as like, you know, she's dead, I was like, no, she like shifted into the, or not shifted, but like she glamored herself into the prince. Like, obviously, that's obviously what happened, because I knew that you're not gonna kill the queer characters, which again, I'm not saying you should have, or that I wanted them to die or anything like that, but like it just makes it very obvious. Immediately I was like, no, she glamored herself to be the prince. But then, twist again, and I'm not sure, like, I kind of like this, kind of don't, because it does kind of come as like I just mentioned, it just came out of my mouth that it's like a twist. And I'm like, it is and it's not, but like at the same time, it just happens at the very end. You know, Hane mentions throughout that like, she, and I'm saying she because she uses she throughout the story, but not very comfortable, we'll just say, in their body. You know, doesn't really feel like they, you know, doesn't want to be with a man. So at first I was like, okay, just like lesbian. And then it becomes very clear that like they want a male body. So they glamour into Rasmus, I think his name is Rasmus, and live as them. And, you know, kind of come out and whatever, and everything's fine, you know, comes out only really to Nina, and then Nina refers to them as their prince, which I thought was very cute and adorable. So I kind of like it, but I'm also like, I don't know, because it is sort of treated like a twist, but there were definitely foreshadowing bits, but you don't really get to see the character like live as their true selves for very long, because it's the very end of the book. But I do also, I think that finale is really kind of cool without even having this whole like sort of trans plot line. I just think it's cool that like as mentioned, 2 Grisha are now like going to be in charge of like Fjerda. Big fuck you to them, you know, like I just think that's kind of cool. And then that's also a way for them to be together, and like it just all kind of works out sort of perfectly. But it's instead of me feeling like, oh, of course it worked out like so perfect, like I do sometimes when everyone just like has a happy ending, I really like that happy ending. I mean, same way with like the Zoya Nikolai thing. Didn't see the Zoya being queen thing, but like it's so perfect. And then of course, he still kind of gets to be king, and it's even mentioned in the story. Like I think someone even says, I mean, I think it might be Alina, where she's like, yeah, like it works out where he still gets to be king though, like the clever fox, you know, like that's kind of funny and cute. I dug that. So the very end with the Darkling, I'm still not happy that he was brought back, but if he's gonna end in any way, him sort of sacrificing himself, but still saying like, I don't want to be redeemed, I am not sorry for the things I did, that was the most him that he acted the entire time. So I like that he was like, this is not my redemption arc, like I am doing this and I'm going to suffer. And I feel like he should stay there. I love the Darkling, I do, you know, I get it, but like, let him stay there and suffer. Oh my god. So the fact that we have this ending where they're like Zoya and Alina and all them are like, we need to just like find a way to kill him, and they contact, you know, like Kaz, like tying all of the characters back up, you know, like Inej, everybody, in a way to like free him. I just let him be and rot in there for a while. Like, he's been in there for like a week. Like, just let him stop. And I know that they're like, I felt his pain and blah 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 and whatever, but I'm just like, if any character deserves it, it's that dude. Like, I love the Darkling, I do, but if you're not gonna leave him dead, let his sacrifice like be an actual thing, you know? Like, let him suffer for a little bit. But they don't want their rule to be about that, whatever. Just let him be. Let it rest. So we have this sort of like cliffhanger ending. Well, not really cliffhanger, but like just this whole like, you know, contact the Crow Club, you know, we need someone to help us get this out of it. So I guess she's leaving a door open to have future books, but honestly, I would like her to rest. I would like the Ravkin characters to rest. If we want to have this open-ended, sort of vague, like, do they go and save the Darkling or not, whatever. Obviously, they're not going to bring him back to life. It would be to, like, fully kill him. I don't want a book about them all teaming up to go kill him. If she comes out with it, will I read it? Of course, I will. But it will feel so anticlimactic at this point because this was, like, okay, enough. Like, everything has happened. All of, like, the battles, like, it's all happened. I don't want to read it. I don't. Would I? Yes, but I don't want to. So I just let them be. Like, this, like, even this didn't need to happen. They could have been let be at the end of the Grisha trilogy or at the end of, like, Crooked Kingdom when they came back in a little bit. Like, let them rest. Everything is fine now. I don't need anything else. If anything, if she wants to continue the Grishaverse, what I would love is give us brand new characters somewhere else. Have the Shu, like, maybe even like follow some of the characters from here that are like Shu, maybe. Or explore like the Kalish areas or something else. So, somewhere else that's not Fierda or Ravka especially. If you want to go back to Ketterdam with the crows, I'm actually fine with that because like another sort of like heist story that's separate from this is fine. But like anything with this grand scope, let them be. Leave them alone. I don't want any more with them. It's fine. Let them rest. I actually really hope she goes back to the 9th House series and gets back into that more consistently because I think it's time. I think it's time to let these characters just like be for a little bit. So that is it. I think I mentioned in my review at least, but I gave this 4 stars. So I still like, there were a lot of strengths about this, but again, I don't feel it was an essential series. It was just okay. She did a really good job tying things up though. I'm very happy with that. So comment down below, let me know your thoughts on Rule of Wolves. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.